Hey everybody, Jace here. Just want to remind you that on every one of these 12 days of the Comic Source videos, you can win 1 month free of Global Comics. And on Christmas Day, we'll be giving away a free year of Global Comics. All you have to do to enter is just go over to the YouTube channel and leave a comment on any particular episode that you've checked out. If you listen to it audio only, again, just head over to YouTube, do a search for the Comic Source. Leave a comment, and everybody who enters a comment for a particular video, I will select at random a person for that video to win the code to get a month of free Global Comics, which is the premier destination for digital comics. Got the best user interface I've ever seen for digital comics. You can read comics on your phone. Over 375,000 comics so far in the library. It's growing daily, so it doesn't cost you a thing to check it out. Again, just leave a comment on the YouTube video for any of the 12 days of the Comic Source YouTube videos, and you'll be entered to win. So hope everybody's having a really fun and enjoyable holiday season, and thanks for joining us for these 12 days of the Comic Source episodes. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Comic Source Podcast, 12 Days of the Comic Source episode, here to talk about a book that's coming actually next year in January. I have the artist for the book. It's part of the Horizon Experiment imprint over at Image, and it's my pleasure to welcome, for the first time on the Comic Source, Skylar Patridge. Skylar, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so it's really great to talk to you about these books. Everybody, if you've been watching previous episodes where we've had some of these other creators on who've done some of these Horizon Experiment books, starting with Pornsack Pichetshote, they're really taking these kind of tropes and sort of familiar stories and flipping them on their head and giving us a different kind of protagonist to really lean into how these stories would be different if they don't follow kind of the same old formula, if you will. So, Skylar, why don't you tell everybody what Finders Keepers is about, the book that you're doing with Vita Ayala, and how it kind of looks to subvert these sort of action-adventure tropes that we've had in the past.
Yeah, for sure. Vita and I approached sort of an Indiana Jones action-adventure story, Tomb Raider elements, but we wanted to do it in reverse. So we wanted to take the idea of the action-adventure elements, various locations, different cultures, and instead of taking from them, we wanted to return. So I think Vita and I both, we've said this before, are big proponents of museums. We love them, but there is a long history of stolen culture in museums. And so we wanted to take the story that we're all very familiar with of the running through the jungles, the dangerous animals, just the fun of those genres, and just have it be the other way around. So we get Ines, who is our protagonist here. She is sort of our Lara Croft character, and she is attempting to return a relic from her island back to her people. The adventures that she goes on in the process of doing that. So yeah, I feel like if you're a fan of The Mummy, if you're a fan of, like I said, Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, this is up your alley.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story and really interesting idea to even consider, because it's not something that I had really thought about before, right? But it's a conversation that we should be having, because when you think about it, you're right. Like, Vita, they have a little essay in the back that's kind of talking about the impetus of the idea. They go back to that first Indiana Jones movie, and they're like, okay, the very first opening scene, it's very fun. He goes through all the traps and everything, and he steals, he literally steals the gold idol, and he says, well, I'm doing the right thing. I'm the hero because I'm trying to keep it out of the hands of this other guy who's just going to sell it. It belongs in a museum. And Vita, the point they make in the essay is like, well, no, doesn't it belong to the people that it belongs to? Like, why are we stealing it at all? If you want to do the heroic thing, you stop the other guy from stealing it, but that doesn't mean you steal it yourself. It's not two wrongs make a right here, right?
Right, very much so. And that is the point that we want to make as far as supporting what museums really do, because a lot of the work that goes into museum curation is protecting it's protecting art, it's protecting memories of culture. Things are donated to museums, and so it is definitely not an indictment of the museum world, but more a kind of analysis or a deeper exploration of the ethics of it. And that, again, it's in Indiana Jones, he's preventing somebody else from taking it. So he's doing a good thing, but at the same time, he's not returning it back to the people, but also have a good time with it. I think we want this story we want it to have something to say, but we also want it to be a lot of fun for the reader.
Yeah, I mean, you want it to be entertaining, and the best comics are the ones that do make you think, right? Like, yeah, it has kind of this underlying, maybe a little sort of ethical thing that we want to talk about, but at the end of the day, if nobody reads it because it's not fun, so that's where you kind of lean into kind of the adventure and Ines's history and that sort of thing. So when we talk about her as a character, I'm kind of interested, like, did they bring this project to you, and then you kind of went through the character design and what have you, or did Vita already have an idea of what Ines was going to look like? Like, give us an idea of building out the character design and kind of the overall tone of the book, because you're an extremely talented artist, but you have some sort of different styles. Like, I'm thinking of the current project you have is the backups in the Action Comics right now with Mariko Tamaki, where that's a much more kind of a scritchy, if that's a word, kind of style, as opposed to the style in this book where it's a lot more clean, and maybe people think it looks more traditional. So talk a little bit about character design and choosing the style you wanted to make work for this particular project.
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your initial question, for the Horizon experiment, it was very much, the prompt was, what is a story a story and a genre that is familiar to people, but that only you can tell? And so the initial idea came from Vita, hence why Ines is from Puerto Rico. And then it was brought to me as, hey, we're thinking sort of Indiana Jones adventure, but in reverse. What do you think? And I'm a huge, huge lover of the Tomb Raider series and Indiana Jones as well. So I've said it before, it's definitely a dream project. And the chance to work with Vita again has been incredible. They are always so encouraging of me exploring artistic styles and just getting a chance to play around with the medium a little bit more. And so when we first started talking about what the book would look like, I kind of wanted to explore the idea of, because it takes place in two places. You have a story both in the past and present in Puerto Rico, and then you also have story that goes a bit back and forth between not the modern world, the mainland, because part of this takes place on the East Coast. And I wanted the museum world, the world of the city and where Ines has traveled to feel a little bit more clean line, a little bit less in touch with indigenous roots, just to feel very different from the island. And so the artwork is a little bit more loose when we're on Puerto Rico. And as we get into some of the more fantastical elements and some of the more adventure, we get a little bit looser, a little more dark and gritty as we venture into the jungles. But the museum itself, those back rooms, are a little bit more sterile in opposition to where we're trying to take the artifact back to.
So did you have to do a lot of research? I imagine, Vita, they must have as well, because, you mentioned being a fan of some of these genres, but you still want to get it right. So, in terms of, hey, what do things look like? Artifacts can, based on how old they are and whatever, you can kind of have some fun with that. But when it comes to, wanting the city to look right and that sort of stuff, was there a lot of research involved?
We kind of wanted it to be our world, but slightly different. So I didn't spend a ton of time researching the streets of New York. I did do a little bit of research into just back rooms in museums where they're keeping the various collections. I did want to make sure that I got that right in some way. But we did want it to feel not too deeply rooted in reality. There is an element of this is an alternative reality. So also the relics are like the main relic that we're dealing with in this storyline doesn't exist. It was created for this storyline specifically because we did want to be very respectful of the culture that we're exploring here. Um, and so that gives us a little freedom to kind of play around with it. I got to come up with some fun ideas for uh, creature design and what that relic looked like based on, you know, other things that we have seen and other relics that we've kind of looked at and based on mythologies and things like that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a supernatural element, everybody. We don't want to spoil. We definitely want you to check it out for yourself. But yeah, it's a very interesting story and a great conversation to have. The only kind of action adventure type movie I can think about that kind of touches on this, there's a movie with The Rock called The Rundown, where it kind of and the artifact was called the Gato, you know, or the cat. It was like this golden cat, and there was this idea that yeah, the Sean William Scott character, he was stealing it. It belongs in a museum, whatever. And they're like, no, it belongs to the people that that live there. And so I'm glad that this project is out there, and much like a lot of the Horizon Experiment or all the Horizon Experiment titles, everybody, it really needs your support. So now's the time to let your comic shop know that you want it. You're going to be picking it up. That way it can continue because it is a story that's complete in this one issue, but it does leave itself open for more. So I'm sure, Skylar, you and Vita have more stories starring Ines that you would like to tell if given the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we created the story in a way to where it can be self-contained. So there will be a sense of the story coming to a wrap, but it's also very much left open to here's the next place we can go. And the hope is that we get to tell many more stories and get to kind of explore many more cultures and various artifacts. And yeah, definitely pre-order, support the book. This is one of my favorite projects that I've gotten to work on in recent years. And so I would definitely love to get to tell more of it.
Yeah, I mean the art is just it's over the top. So it's so good. And one of the things that I love, and this kind of regardless of which of your kind of styles you're using, it's one of the things that you really excel at, I think. And by no means am I saying this is a talking head book, everybody. There's a ton of action in this book, but there are moments that are kind of quieter moments. You do such a great job of keeping it interesting, even when it is kind of character interaction, just two people talking. Is that something you're always try to be aware of? Like, how can I make this visually interesting, even if it is just kind of in the back of a museum with this benefactor and his son talking to Ines? We want to keep us visually engaged.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that with comics, the talking head can be useful. I think when that is done, it's more of a storytelling choice. When I'm trying to draw out a conversation and you're in a space like the back of the museum, I like to move the camera around a little bit so you get this kind of sense of inhabiting the space as well, and almost fly on the wall element to it. Just to keep it from being static, but also it's a little more fun. You get a better sense of the space that the characters are existing in.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we just scratched the surface on some supporting characters as well. Diego being one, Anna being another. And so again, like everybody, I really encourage you to pick this up. I personally, I'm just being selfish. I really want to learn more about these characters and where we can go, because in terms of the main character Ines and being somebody who's going to decide, hey, I'm going to take these artifacts, from wherever, private collections or whatever, and return them to the people they rightly belong to. It's not a situation like some of the other Horizon Experiment stories where we kind of start in the middle. This really is Ines's kind of her origin story, right?
Yeah, very much so. We wanted it to kind of get it established where she's coming from. Why does she start doing that? I think we get a little bit of that, I think, in Lara Croft, but I think there's a little uncertainty in Indiana Jones. He's kind of just an adventurer, and he's out there to, just a little extra fun on the side, I guess. But this is much more, there's more motivation for Ines, and it's a very personal journey for her. And yeah, I think the more runway we get for this, the more adventures that she's going to get, the more lessons she's going to learn. And we're going to have that ability to explore her growth along the way, as well as the pitfalls that she falls into along the journey. So
Yeah. I mean, this is not a black and white kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
Definitely some gray area, and they're all great. All the Horizon Experiment, I've enjoyed them all, but this one for me is the one. Like, if I can only pick one to have it continue, it would be this one. And part of it is because I love a good heist flick, right? And that's what's really cool about this idea that you and Vita have come up with, because we get the action adventure, but if it's a situation where Ines has to, get something from a private collection, break into a safe or whatever. Now we're talking heist kind of mixed in with the action adventure. And I just love that. But I know those types of stories are really challenging. So, I mean, is that something you would look forward to, like challenging yourself in the project to do those kind of stories?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was what was very appealing as we got into the nitty gritty of this story, was figuring out how to layer in a little bit of the heist element. It's action adventure, it's heist. There's some mystery involved. There is a supernatural element to it. So it's a lot of genres kind of stacked on one another. And the heist part was probably one of my favorites, because there is also a very unusual storytelling mechanism that was Vita's idea, but I got to design the whole thing. I'm sure you probably know where I'm talking about. But it's also a very interactive part of the story, kind of touching back on the conversational question you had. We wanted this to feel very immersive for the reader, and figuring out the heist, how to make that play out, was a ton of fun. It was very challenging, but it was also very fun. So I hope we get to do more of that, do more of the immersive storytelling, immersive visuals.
Yeah, and everybody, if you're out there listening, going, "Oh, I really want to know what it is." Okay, we don't want to spoil it for you, but pick it up and you'll read it. And when you get to that last page, it's very obvious when you get to that last page what we're talking about. So it's so awesome.
And because there are the heist elements to it, because there is this sort of, we wanted to kind of in the way in like Lara Croft and Indiana Jones, where they kind of have to figure out how to get to the next part, kind of video game mechanics as well. There's puzzles that have to be figured out. And so both Vita and I are looking forward to trying to figure out how to incorporate more puzzles, more interactive elements, and create an even more immersive world for Ines and for us and for readers as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So everybody, again, it's out on January 15th. Tell your retailer now. Final order cutoff has passed, but, get those reorders in. Get the word out. Let other people that that read comics, fans of Indiana Jones or puzzles, that kind of thing, heists, that they'll really enjoy it as well. So really encourage everybody to go and check it out. So Skylar, thanks so much for taking the time during this busy holiday season to talk to me about the project. If somebody wants to follow your work online, are you active on social media? Is there a particular place where people can go? I am.
Yeah. I have a Blue Sky. It's just Sky Patridge. And Instagram is also the other place that I'm relatively active. Pretty much if I have it, it's going to be SKYE Patridge. And that's where you're going to find me.
Okay, great.
And then you can also catch me on my website. It's just skylarpatridge.com.
Okay, great. I'll put a link to the website and then the Instagram and the Blue Sky in the show notes, everybody. So if you're having trouble finding Skylar, you can go and click there. Again, Skylar, I really loved it. Thanks so much for letting me check it out and for chatting about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to everybody out there, whether you're joining us on the YouTube channel or the audio only, we really appreciate you taking the time. On the behalf of Skylar and myself, we want to wish you a healthy and happy holiday season. Hope it's a joyous time, and we'll talk to you on the next one.